Yep, we're good.
Good morning. Welcome to our 2020 Anzac Assembly. I would like to start by respectfully acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today and to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Anzac Day, the 25th of April, is one of Australia's most important national occasions. It marks the anniversary of the first major military action fought by Australian and New Zealand soldiers during the First World War. The soldiers in these forces quickly became known as Anzacs, and their pride they took in the name endures to this day. As Anzac stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, we will today sing the national anthem and then listen to the New Zealand national anthem. Please stand for the national anthems of Australia and New Zealand. We are here today to honour all Australians who have served our country in times of war and conflict, and in particular the original Anzacs who landed on the shores of Gallipoli over 100 years ago on the 25th of April 1915. Anzac Day is a day when we remember the anniversary of the landings of Australian and New Zealand soldiers, or Anzacs as we now call them, on some beaches far away from Australian shores, in a place called Gallipoli, which is in the country of Turkey. So, what happened on that morning at Gallipoli? Well, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, 36 large rowing boats loaded with Australian and New Zealand soldiers left the protection of larger British ships and set off for the beaches of Gallipoli. An hour and a half later, the first boats crunched against the rock and sand of a place now called Anzac Cove. The soldiers scrambled ashore and started to climb up the steep slopes. As enemy machine gun came firing down on them, many were killed or wounded in those first few hours ashore. In the dark, many of the boats had drifted off course and landed quite a long way from where they should have been. They had in fact landed where the Turkish forces were the strongest and where the machine gun and artillery fire were thickest. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, some 12,000 men had landed. Later that day, some very brave Australians reached the heights overlooking the beaches. However, they were soon forced to turn back, never to return. Within a month, over half of those who had landed at Gallipoli were either dead or wounded. For 7 long months, the Anzac hung onto their positions on the cliffs and slopes of Anzac Cove. The Australians and New Zealanders could not move forward, and it was in those months a spirit developed amongst those soldiers. A spirit which relied on each soldier helping out his mates. By the end of that year, 1915, approximately 32,000 Australian and New Zealanders had been killed or wounded at Gallipoli. The battle was over, but in those months when so many Australians had died under terrible conditions of heat and cold, of sickness, of suffering, of lack of sleep and food and shelter, the legend of Anzac was born. So why do we now remember this occasion? The Anzac story shows us how important it was and still is, to do our very best and be the example of the men of the Anzac and later generations of Australian servicemen and women who should inspire us today. Those men and women believed in mateship, of helping out a mate or a friend. They were determined and courageous people. For many of us, Anzac Day is very personal. Many families at our school have parents or other family members who are current members of the Defence Force, and many families have relatives who have served our country in previous times. Every Anzac Day, we should remember all current and former members of the Australian Defence Force.
In Flanders Fields by Lieutenant Colonel John McRae, Canadian Army. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch, be yours to hold it high, if ye break faith with us who die. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
We will now observe 1 minute silence. We ask you to stand quietly and still, close your eyes if you wish, and reflect. First you will hear the tune of the last post. When it is ended, the minute's silence will begin. At the end of the minute, you will hear another piece called Reveille. Please remain standing and quiet until the end of the second tune. Please stand quietly.
They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. The going down of the sun and in the morning, we shall remember them, lest we forget.
Thank you.